Greetings from Snake Mountain Boatworks on Thursday, September 12, 2019. Here's an update on our 1937 20-foot Lyman Runabout, the Eagle. And I'm just going to hand it off to RJ to kind of walk us through what's been going on at the boat. And then Joe's been doing some really interesting work reconstructing the windshield and taking care of some of the rotted members. But before that, take it away, RJ.
Well, we stripped the whole boat down and took all the inside pieces out of the interior of the boat. We then scraped and lightly scuffed the inside of the boat, and Joey and Anthony applied 2 coats of bilge paint on the inside.
There were actually 3 coats in some places, I think, yep. right down through the guts of the bilge.
Yep. This front frame that holds the back of the front deck up and the dash anchors to it is not necessarily rotten, but it's pretty dry, and
the ends had rotted to some extent.
The ends over here were rotted off on both sides. So I made a frame member that goes behind it, and it's about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches solid oak. I anchored that to the back side with big screws from out here and put 5200 on it so that it was mounted to this end of the deck, and that strengthened up this deck a lot. There was a couple pieces of decking that were rotted out. It has big coamings on it that go full length, and where the windshield met the coaming there was weep holes for water to escape, but those are actually plugged, so water was just piling on the deck and having no place to escape. So this board on both sides was rotted, and there was holes rotted right through it. On the other side, it's actually this board too was rotted, but this side it was savable.
And how are we going to deal with some of the things like there was a little edge rot?
And the putty that they had in here was actually cracked and falling out of these spots. I used the stuff we call G-Flex, which is Thixo
Flex from Jamestown, a total boat project.
I tried it here on a couple of spots where the filler was missing and had been broken out, and it hasn't been sanded yet, but it's definitely very sturdy, and once it sands down, you won't even be able to tell that it's any different than the rest of the filler.
Yep.
So we're gonna put that in these spots and around the new planks that I installed.
Now if I'm remembering correctly, we're not going to try to dig out the caulking between the planks, because these planks were set so close together, right?
Right, and the stuff is so hard in between them that you're going to destroy the planks trying to get that out of there.
All right.
We have one spot on the deck over here where the end of this plank is kind of punky and dry rotted. I'll gouge all that rot out, and I'll put Thixo wood filler in there, which is pretty much like a ground up wood, and
it'll stain the color.
We'll stain it up to what we're going to stain the entire boat as it goes in, and then we'll sand that in.
So your next steps then are to get all of these hurts repaired, fill the seams where they need to be filled, sand it, and then we bleach, right? Right. So.
And I also, when I anchored these down, I put 5200 down on the frames, and then use these blocks to actually press the piece down so that they're nice and tight, and I'll let those set up. It'll take a day or two for the 5200 to cure under them, but once it's cured, these won't move.
I'm guessing we will drill out the weepholes.
Yes.
Well, that's what RJ's doing. He's the transom needs, it's only had an initial sanding, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So
I also did a bunch on this frame. There's a plank that runs across here to there, but when we took the plank off, all this framing was really loose. All the screws were a little loose. I replaced a couple of them in the ends and painted it all up so that that's ready for the new piece to go down, or the old piece to go down.
And either somebody at some point, I can't imagine the torture, stripped the interior of this boat to bare wood and then selected this gray bilge paint rather than Lyman santan. But of course, we're in 1937, so I'm not sure that it was ever done in santan. But rather than try to strip it again, we stayed with the gray bilge paint. It is Interlux Bilgekote, which is our go-to bilge paint. It is tough, tenaciously adheres to what's beneath it, and will protect the innards of this boat for a long, long time. Now, if we walk across the shop, past the 1951 Penn Yan president, we find Joe hiding over here in the corner. Basically, by his positioning, telling us, just leave me alone. I've got tedious work to do. What have you been doing, Joe?
Well, our vertical uprates on this windshield, they were replaced and repaired several times. And they're just in really, really rough shape. A lot of dry rot in them. So right now, I'm getting all the verticals all put in, and there's actually quite a few cuts that got to be done. A lot of scribing in, a lot of sanding, seeing if it will fit, and then just keep repeating. So I'm on the last one right now.
So you did the middle one as well?
Yeah, I did the middle one. I started with the middle one because that's going to get my overall height.
The original one, that don't look bad here or even here, but once we pull it off, we see where it's anchored, and it's already been fixed as something previously, and
it was all loose, if I remember.
Yeah.
All the joints failed on it when we were taking the windshield off the boat.
And this windshield stands upright with no side supports, similar to Susan's windshield, so you really want these supports to be sturdy, or else your windshield to just fold back.
Yeah.
And right now we're just trying to make it the glass clearance. Last time they had way too much slop in the glass, so we're making it actually a little bit tighter. And when I put it all back together, I'm going to end up putting 5200 in the joints, and that will make it so it's nice and watertight.
Well, that's good. Then the sort of interesting part of any of these preservation projects is what comes out of the inside of the boat. I mean, when we look at a beautiful wooden Lyman or Chris Craft or Century, and you see the seating and the engine box and all of that, and it all coheres until you start taking it apart. And so this looks like the aft bench seat here.
No, this is the aft bench seat, and then this one is for the forward seat in the front.
So as I walk, you can, maybe RJ can identify some of these parts, but they're just endless. And we'll see we'll see right here. Most of these are bilge painted in some parts and varnished in others. So we've finished all the bilge painting and now are working to, we did not strip the brightly finished wood. What we did was sand it and flat, and then we're applying additional coats.
This piece has been remade because a lot of times you'll have a board that's real good all the way through, but you'll get to one end where water's sat. And this piece, I don't have the old piece here, but it was missing about this much of the old piece. It was rotted right off. So we wanted it back to the original length.
So that's sort of a longitudinal Dutchman.
Yeah.
That's great. And see, we saved 90% of the frame.
And this is actually off another piece of that boat that
Oh, so it's the same wood.
crashed, so it's all from that boat.
Yeah, there's another really good example on that. I believe it's on this one. Where we ended up having to do a Dutchman here. I mean, you could take a screwdriver and you could drop it and it would go right through the piece of wood. So I took it to where it was all bad and then threw in another piece, and this one will actually come in. You won't even be able to see this Dutchman when it's done. And that was also from this boat too as well.
So, and the piles continue into,
This room's full.
yeah, maybe you can go flip that. So we are working on the dash and all of these little individual pieces. And I'm guessing
There is some parts in there that are being varnished. This seat goes with that one as well.
There, this will give you an idea. People say, why are they spending so much time on the inside of the boat? Well, now we do have some parts here from Susan, the 1940 yacht tender, but most of this is from the Eagle.
Yep. These are all from the Eagle. Pretty much all of these are from the Eagle. These are from the Eagle. There's one part here was from Susan. The rest of that's the Eagle. And this is all Eagle stuff.
Yeah, why don't you hold that one board up with the bilge paint on the end? That's a good example of what we encountered. I mean, this is mostly bilge paint on.
The twin to that piece that Joe just showed you the Dutchman on.
Right. And we've just begun applying varnish to these pieces, and we'll put a few more coats. We're not attempting to achieve a show result on these pieces that are hidden down in the bilge, but we want them to be nice and flat and glossy. Like that one's nice and flat and very glossy.
This one's very nice.
Yeah.
These are Susan pieces, but
That's Susan's engine box, huh?
yep.
Yeah. So, we take you back out on this extended tour past the aft bench seat, frame and bench. There she is. We're making huge progress. Her engine's with Robert Henkel, Peter Henkel Incorporated in Marine City, Michigan. It is original to the boat, and Robert is very pleased with what he was given, even though it hadn't been run in a long, long time. He will save it, and we'll have it back in a couple of months so we can finish the construction. So, there's our update on the 1937 20-foot Lyman Runabout. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now from Snake Mountain Boatworks.